Welcome back to the Joe Rogan experience, where you, as a listener, get to hear interesting views from all areas of life. Thanks for being on this show, Father Elijah.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, Father Elijah is calling in from the Sierra Madre and can't be directly on site. Before the show, you told me your plan for using the Sierra Madre to wipe the slate clean. Your plan sounds like it has enormous potential, but I'm curious. There are definitely large moral and ethical dilemmas with your plan. I want to hear you out for once, however. How do you plan on grappling with these dilemmas in your pursuit of a new civilization?
The moral question. To me, it is clear. We are living in a world destroyed by humanity's folly. I believe the end justifies the means in this situation. The Sierra Madre has the potential to restore order, provide stability, to begin again. It could be the bedrock of a new world, free of the chaos and suffering that is the wasteland.
But it sounds like you're saying that you are willing to force this solution onto people with the use of these collars. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and it is a difficult truth. But consider the current state of our world, Joe. We are fragmented, constantly at odds, resources are scarce, and violence is rampant. My goal is to create unity and stability, a chance for a better life. The collars, they are a tool of control, but also a guarantee of safety and survival.
I see. You want to bring people together temporarily, but isn't there something deeply troubling about the idea of stripping people's freedom to ensure cooperation?
Freedom is a luxury, one we can no longer afford in our world. The road to recovery is steep, Joe, and for some, a firm hand to guide them is necessary.
I guess it's all about perspective, huh? From my chair, it seems like the technology you're dealing with is extremely powerful. What about the danger of it falling into the wrong hands?
It is a risk. But the Sierra Madre's defenses are formidable. Holographic security, toxic cloud. It's not easy to conquer. I'm one of the few who understand it well enough to truly harness its capabilities. I will use it responsibly to bring about a new era for humanity. We will rise from the ashes, stronger, unified.
Now, before the show, Elijah, you made it pretty clear you have a large disdain for the NCR. What are your views on them? What are your specific complaints about their empire?
Yes, the new California Republic, so-called bearers of civilization in the wasteland. You see, Joe, my disdain for them is based on their hubris, their short-sightedness. They aspire to rebuild an old world that led to its own destruction. They try to impose order and bureaucracy where flexibility and innovation are needed.
But some might argue that they're just trying to bring some semblance of normality back to the world, right?
Normality. They're bringing back the same institutions and ideals that got us into this mess in the first place. Democracy, capitalism, exploitation of resources without a thought for the consequences. They're stretching themselves too thin, expanding without fortifying, consuming without replenishing. It's the same old story of humanity's hubris.
So if I understand correctly, your main issue is their lack of foresight and their repetition of the same mistakes.
Precisely, Joe. The world has changed. We cannot return to the old ways. We need new methods, new structures, new thinking. That's why the Sierra Madre technology is so crucial. It provides the tools to build a new kind of society, one built on self-sufficiency, security, and unity.
And you believe that people should be forced into this new society for their own good?
I believe, Joe, that sometimes people don't know what's best for them. They need guidance. They need order. In this brutal world, those who can't adapt die. It's harsh, yes, but it's the reality. I simply offer a means to adapt, to survive, and perhaps to flourish once again.
Well, that's certainly a provocative take, Father Elijah. It's a very ends justify the means approach. It's a fascinating discussion, and I appreciate your perspective.
You looking to buy some supply?
There's no easy answers in a post-apocalyptic world. Speaking of the world, I've heard tales of your various travels, especially from a certain courier across the world. The courier is not to be confused with the one that woke up in Good Springs pretty recently. One tale I've heard is that you've been through the Big Empty, a place many folks avoid like the plague. What was your experience like there?
The Big Empty, or as some call it, the Old World Blues. A desolate place, but teeming with the echoes of the past. Scientific marvels, technological relics, but also a stark reminder of the destruction that our obsession with progress led to.
Yeah, it seems like a haunting place, a graveyard of the old world, but you're one of the few who ventured into that dangerous terrain. What did you discover?
In the Big Empty, I found remnants of advanced technologies, remnants of a world that once was. The Think Tank, a group of pre-war scientists transformed into sentient brains, trapped in a perpetual cycle of experimentation. It's fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Terrifying indeed. So, how did those discoveries shape your outlook on the world?
The Big Empty is a testament to mankind's folly, a monument to our mistakes, but it also houses keys to our redemption. From the wreckage, I managed to salvage technologies that could be harnessed for the betterment of humanity. But it also reaffirmed my belief that we must tread carefully, lest we repeat the errors of our past.
Right, that there's a fine line between advancement and self-destruction. It's amazing and a little unnerving how history continues to echo.
Another satisfied customer.
Joe, the echoes are loudest in the emptiness. We just need to listen, learn, and not repeat the same song of destruction.
Now, something our listeners might want to know about is your experience with being an elder for the Brotherhood of Steel. How did you first occupy Helios 1? How did you lose it to the NCR? What's with the Brotherhood now?
Indeed, I was an elder. Helios 1. It was an old-world facility, a solar power plant of immense capacity. I saw its potential, the energy it could provide, the power it could give the Brotherhood. We occupied it with the intent to harness its power, to fuel our efforts and strengthen our presence in the wasteland. As for losing it, the NCR, they were expanding, reaching out for every resource they could grasp. We were outnumbered, outgunned. Despite our technological superiority, we were not prepared for a full-scale assault. In the end, I ordered a retreat to save my brethren from a total wipeout.
That must have been a heavy decision to make. I'd have thought that your objective in Helios 1 was to protect the technology, rather than to secure it for power. It's interesting to find out that there were ulterior motives.
It was, Joe. But as a leader, you're faced with tough choices. You have to weigh the survival of your people against your goals, your ideals. It's never easy.
I can only imagine. And how about the Brotherhood now? What's happening with them?
The Brotherhood, they're survivors. Resilient. After the loss of Helios 1, they retreated, regrouped. They're still out there, somewhere in the wasteland, clinging to their mission of preserving old-world technology. I can feel it, but I fear they may be losing sight of the broader picture without me. Technology is a tool, not a god to be worshipped. It needs to be used, adapted, evolved, not hoarded and hidden away. That's why I left, why I'm on this path now.
It sounds like you've had quite a journey, Father Elijah. I appreciate your openness and honesty. Despite the dire circumstances, your hope and determination are remarkable. Thank you for being on the show, despite the fact I don't agree with some of your views.
Thank you for having me on the experience, Rogan.
Joe, hey there. Listeners,
Feeling thirsty?
This one's coming straight from the scorched belly of the Mojave Wasteland. Have you ever considered that maybe, just maybe, you need a change in pace from that dreary scavenging life?
Thanks.
Enjoy the thrill of bartering with rat scorpions and the challenge of haggling with ghoul merchants. Then, folks, have I got a job for you. The Happy Trails Caravan Company is recruiting. Yes, the one and only legendary caravan that's outlasted the nuclear fallout and still, mostly, outpaces the competition. As part of their dynamic trading team, you'll enjoy all the thrills of the wasteland without the hassle of fending off white legs. Well, most of the time. Your trusty Brahmin and your wagon will be your home on wheels, carrying all the essentials from wasteland water to sunset sarsaparilla. Imagine it, cruising under the scorching Mojave sun, sipping on that ice-cold sarsaparilla, while your radio plays the smooth tunes of Mr. New Vegas. Ah, ain't that a slice of heaven? But remember, folks, being a part of the Happy Trails Caravan isn't just about earning those shiny caps you need for Fisto. It's about bringing communities together, supplying folks with that rare Mojave survival kit they need to brave the next rad storm or that sweet Atomic Wranglers limited edition deck of cards they've been searching for. It's about connecting the Brotherhood of Steel with the NCR military, the Tops Casino with the Atomic Wrangler, in a dance of trade that makes the wasteland spin. And hey, before you scoff, remember this. In the wasteland, traders are the real heroes. After all, who do you think brings you the stim packs for your spear wounds? Now that I say it, people should stop trying to sell the Legion drugs. So sign up with the Happy Trails Caravan Company today. Live a life of adventure, meet fascinating people, and probably get robbed by them. And if you act now, they're throwing in a free box of Sunset Sarsaparilla, the Wasteland's favorite drink, with a surprise star cap and some boxes. Big thanks to the Happy Trails Caravan Company for sponsoring the Joe Rogan Experience, the only podcast that dares to broadcast from an undisclosed bunker location in the Mojave Wasteland. What? No, Jamie, I'm not going to tell them where we are. Yes, I know it would be good for ratings, but it'd also be good for getting us blown up. Sheesh, the things you have to put up with. Hey, are we still on air? Shit. Welcome to the Joe Rogan Experience. Today we have an extraordinary guest, Ulysses, formerly affiliated with Caesar's Legion and currently residing in the Divide.
Thanks for having me, Joe. A long road it's been to get here.
I can imagine. For our listeners who may not know, can you explain what Caesar's Legion and the Divide are?
This should be obvious, but Caesar's legions, it's a tribe, trying to forge itself into a nation by the hand of Caesar, a man who took the history of Rome as his blueprint. The Divide, it's a place, a tear in the earth, a home I made for myself after the Legion.
Fascinating. So, you've been a part of this Legion. What was that like?
It was a culture of strength, unity, obedience. But it had its faults. It chose to ignore the value of the individual, made a man less than a man, a cog in the machine.
That's a very profound way of looking at it. Do you think there's any comparison to be made with how society is structured in our world today?
The world you know, it's different, but not so different. People cling to structures, systems to give their lives meaning, order. Sometimes they forget themselves in the process.
That's true. There's a lot of people who lose themselves in the systems they're part of. To me, those familiar elements could be work, government, or social media. In some ways, it feels like we're all part of some legion or another, just trying to make sense of the world.
Yes, the bear and the bull, different beasts. But beasts still, be it Caesar's Legion or your own tribes. It's all about power, control. The trick is remembering who you are, not losing yourself to the mask you wear.
That's a very interesting perspective, Ulysses. Shifting gears a bit, it seems like you're very big on old world symbols. Can you explain what these symbols represent and how they've influenced your worldview?
The old world. It left behind symbols, history. Sometimes they're reminders of what we've lost. Sometimes warnings of the path not to tread. The flag of the old world, the stars and stripes. To some it's hope. To others, a reminder of destruction.
It's interesting how symbols can have such differing interpretations. They really do carry the weight of history with them.
Yes. And often, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Like the Divide, the old world symbols serve as reminders of the path walked and those yet to be trodden.
So, these symbols from the past, do they guide your decisions today? What role do they play in your current life in the Divide?
They remind me of the roads I've walked, the mistakes made, and the lessons learned. Like the old world flag on my back, it's a burden, a responsibility to remember, to strive for a better path. The Divide is a harsh place, a symbol itself. It serves as a testament to the destructive power of old wars and forgotten technologies. It's a warning and a teacher. Everyone has a history, their own symbols. It's up to us to decipher them, learn from them. That's the way forward as I see it.
There's a lot of wisdom in that, Ulysses. Acknowledging and learning from the past, while also striving for a better future. It's a balance that we all should strive for. Now let's move on to another topic. I know that you used to be close with Caesar, who was another guest on our show. How would you describe him?
Caesar, he's a man of vision, of strength. He saw the tribes of the wasteland and saw potential, a nation. But he's also a man of paradoxes. He carries an old world book, speaks old world words, but condemns the old world. He claims to despise its weakness, but he's a part of it, whether he admits it or not.
That's a very nuanced take. It sounds like there's a lot of complexity there, a lot of contradiction.
The world's a complex place, filled with paradox. The challenge is seeing them, acknowledging them. Caesar, he's blind to his own contradictions. That's his failing, his weakness.
So in a sense, his greatest strength, his conviction, his vision could also be seen as his greatest weakness because it blinds him to these paradoxes, to the complexity of the world.
Yes, strength, vision, they're vital. But so is understanding, self-awareness. The day you believe you have nothing left to learn, that's the day you've lost. Whether you're a man, a tribe, a nation.
That's deep, Ulysses. It sounds like you've done a lot of thinking on this. And I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. No matter how much we achieve, there's always more to learn, always more complexity to unravel. I've heard that you've not only been to the Big Empty, but you've also been to Utah and the region surrounding New Canaan. What is your experience there, especially with the White Legs?
The Big Empty. It's a place of old ghosts, of forgotten science. Dangerous, but full of lessons, if you're willing to learn. Utah, New Canaan, they're different. Green, alive, even with the scars of the old world. They've been shaped by the tribes there, the White Legs among them.
The White Legs, they're a pretty notorious tribe, right?
Yes, notorious is one way to describe them. The White Legs, they're a tribe consumed by a hunger for power, for conquest. They tried to earn Caesar's favor by burning New Canaan, destroying something beautiful for the sake of ambition. I taught them, gave them tools, not knowing the ends they'd use them for. It's a mistake I carry with me.
That sounds like a heavy burden, Ulysses. But it's also a very human one. We all have actions, decisions that we regret. The important thing is learning from those experiences and using that knowledge to make better decisions moving forward.
That's the hope, Joe. To learn, to grow. We all walk our own roads, make our own mistakes. What matters is what we take from those journeys, the lessons we learn. That's what shapes us, defines us. That's what I've tried to do, since Utah, since the White Legs. I carry the past with me, but I don't let it rule me.
That's a very powerful perspective, Ulysses. I think there's a lot we can all learn from that. Thanks for sharing.
The journey here, it was worth it. To share, to learn, that's the way forward for all of us. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Hey there, Wastelanders. It's your intrepid guide to the apocalypse, Joe Rogan, coming to you live from the Mojave. We're mixing it up today with a shout out to our main sponsor, the one, the only, the Kings. Located in Freeside, just a hop, skip, and a jump over a pack of feral ghouls from the New Vegas Strip, the Kings are where it's at. It's not just a cult and a bunch of lookalikes, folks. It's now a veritable oasis of entertainment and recruitment in this sun-scorched hellhole we all call home. So what can you expect at the Kings? Well, first off, there is a stage with one singer on it if you manage to get past that asshole pacer. If you're lucky enough to get to the stage, you can find the king and promptly take his dog. Optionally, you can also do some favors for him, including figuring out why the NCR likes to massacre civilians. But let's not forget the king's crowning glory, its favors. For those of you committed to the king, this is for you. Swap your diplomatic talks in exchange for favors, including caps, creating peace, or best of all, a counterfeit passport. All right, let's wrap this up. Thanks to the Kings for sponsoring the Joe Rogan Experience. Remember, folks, life in the wasteland is tough, but it's always a party at the Kings. Now, Jamie, where's that psycho we had here earlier? We need to make sure we have enough drugs for the next... Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Joe Rogan Experience. Today we have a very special guest joining us all the way from the Mojave Wasteland. His name is Benny, and he is a tribal chairman representing one of the 4 families that rule over the post-apocalyptic desert.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Benny, I know you're a big shot in the Vegas Strip. You own one of the hottest casinos, the Tops. What's it like running that kind of operation in the post-apocalyptic world?
Joey, my man, you're asking all the right questions. The Tops, baby, it's not just a casino, it's a lifestyle. It's the neon lights in the darkness, the jingle-jangle of chips in your pocket. We got the best shows, the swankiest suites, and the hippest cats on the Strip. Sure, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, but inside the tops, you're on cloud 9. We've got ghouls playing blackjack, super mutants sipping martinis. Ain't that a sight, huh? It's all about spreading the love, Joey. The tops is where the magic happens, where the old world glitz meets the new world grit, you get me?
Absolutely. Sounds like quite the scene. Let's shift gears here. In your world, there's been some talk of these factions. The NCR, Caesar's Legion, and Mr. House. How do you navigate these political waters?
Well, Joe, you know, politics is a tricky game, especially when you've got a chessboard like Vegas. The NCR, they're a bunch of square cats who think they can just waltz in and take over. Caesar's Legion, well, let's just say they ain't big on democracy, dig? As for Mr. House, well, the guy's got a brain like a quantum computer, but he's colder than a Mojave night. My philosophy? I play my cards close and never fold until I know who's dealing. The top stays neutral, baby. It's all about maintaining the peace and keeping the caps flowing. Politics is just the high-stakes game that happens between the spins of the roulette wheel. That's all.
Benny, that's a perspective you don't hear every day. This balance you're striking, it seems pretty tough. Does it ever worry you, Benny?
Joey, in this business, if you ain't a little worried, you're either fooling yourself or you're a fool. But worry, that's just another word for being prepared. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your piece at your side, and your hand on the chips, and you'll always be ready to roll with whatever comes your way. But hey, enough of that gloomy talk. Let's put on a record, pour a drink, and let the good times roll. After all, we're in Vegas, baby.
Fair enough, Benny. Now let's dive into something different. I've heard tales about these creatures called death claws. Are they really as terrifying as people make them out to be?
Oh, Joey, you're talking about the boogeymen of the Mojave. Death claws, baby. They're like if nightmares had nightmares. Imagine, if you will, a reptile that's taller than a Yao Guai, with claws that can tear through power armor like it's a pre-war suit. You hear that heavy breathing behind you in the wastes? That ain't no sandstorm, that's a death claw.
Jesus, sounds like the worst kind of monster movie come to life. Now, you're a man of style, Benny. That checkered suit, it's iconic. How do you manage to stay so well dressed in a world like this?
Well, Joey, here's the thing. In a world where everything's gone to the dogs, style is the one thing you can control. It's a statement, baby. It's about saying, I'm here, I'm alive, and I've still got it. This checkered suit, it's not just fabric. It's a philosophy. It's a way of life. You gotta dress like you're the biggest player at the table even when the chips are down. Especially when the chips are down.
It's a cool way of looking at things. So, Benny, have you ever thought about what's next? Any plans beyond running the tops?
Now that's a good question, Joey. There's always a new game to play, a new score to settle. The world keeps spinning, even when it seems like it's stuck in the mud. Vegas. She's a dame with a lot of potential, and I aim to see her shine. Who knows, baby? Maybe one day there'll be more tops lighting up the waist, bringing a bit of that old world charm to every cat and doll out there. But for now, I'm just riding the wave and enjoying the view from the top.
Now, Benny, I've heard rumors of these unique individuals in the Mojave, people like the mysterious stranger or the burned man. Side note, we've actually talked about the burned man with Caesar, and man was he apprehensive about it. Anyways, do you believe in these legends, or do you think they're just wasteland tales?
Well, Joe, I ain't one to discount a good yarn. The wasteland's a strange place, full of oddballs and mysteries. The burned man, that's a tale that'll give you the heebie-jeebies. Ain't no denying it. As for the mysterious stranger, I've heard stories. A shadowy figure that pops up out of nowhere, just in the nick of time. I can't say I've seen it with my own peepers, but in a world where folks rise from the grave, who am I to say what's real and what's not? You dig?
It's a wild world you're living in, Benny. I have heard of these creatures, too, called cazadores and night stalkers. You ever run into these?
Joe, those things ain't just creatures. They're living, breathing nightmares. Cazadores, they're like wasps on steroids with a sting that'll have you seeing stars. Night stalkers, imagine a coyote and a rattlesnake had a baby, and that baby had a real mean streak. You run into either of those, you better hope your piece is loaded and your aim is true, or you're gonna be in a world of hurt.
Before we wrap up, Benny, I'd like to circle back to something we touched on earlier. The political situation in New Vegas with the NCR, Caesar's Legion, and Mr. House all vying for power. If you had to place a bet, who do you think will come out on top?
Joey, you know the House doesn't like to reveal its hand. But seeing as you asked, I'll give you my two caps. The NCR, they've got the numbers, but they're spread thin. Caesar's Legion, they're brutal, ruthless, but they don't have the hearts of the people. As for Mr. House, he's got the tech and the brains. But the question is, does he have the humanity to lead? It's a tough call, Joe, but if I had to lay down a bet, I'd say it's not about who has the biggest guns, or the strongest soldiers, or the smartest brains. It's about who understands the people of Vegas, who can give them hope, show them a future worth fighting for. And that, Joe, that's a bet that's still on the table.
Interesting perspective, Benny. It's clear that the game is still very much in play. Benny, once again, thanks for being on the show. It's been enlightening.
The pleasure's all mine, Joey. Thanks for having me. And remember, life's a gamble, baby. Always play your cards right and never fold until you know the game. Stay cool and keep those dice rolling.
Yeah, you did it, dude.
Thank you.